The mission began like so many others. Theron Voss received word from the Jedi Council that a new threat had emerged, a criminal syndicate specializing in the export of slaves across the galaxy. The assignment was clear: infiltrate, dismantle, and liberate. Voss's reputation as a Jedi Sentinel was well earned, and his skills in stealth and combat were unparalleled. Disguised as a mercenary, Voss followed the trail of the syndicate, known as the Red Talon, to a remote planet on the fringes of the galaxy. The planet, Denon, was a hub of illicit activity, its sprawling urban landscape a maze of corruption. Voss navigated its underbelly, gathering intelligence and identifying key targets. His mission led him to a heavily guarded compound on the outskirts of the city, where the slaves were being held. As night fell, Voss made his move. He slipped past the guards, disabling surveillance systems and neutralizing patrols with silent efficiency. Inside the compound, he found rows of cells, each filled with captives of all ages and species. His heart ached at the sight of the enslaved, but he focused on the task at hand. He began unlocking the cells, urging the captives to follow him to freedom. In the midst of the chaos, a desperate voice called out to him. "There's something unnatural down there. Even they couldn't control it," a frightened man said, pointing to a darkened corridor. Trembling, he added, "It's dangerous. Please be careful." Voss felt a powerful disturbance in the force emanating from the corridor. It was an energy unlike anything he had ever encountered, both alluring and terrifying. With a nod to the man, he made his way down the shadowy passage, his yellow lightsaber igniting to cut through the darkness. As he approached a locked door, the sensation intensified, making Voss almost dizzy with the sheer power radiating from within. He used the force to dismantle the locks, each one falling away with a clatter. When the door finally opened, Voss was taken aback by the sight before him. The room was warped and twisted, as if the very fabric of reality had been melted. In the center of the room, curled up in fear, was a young boy. Theron reached out with the force, projecting calm and reassurance. "I mean you no harm. My name is Theron. I have been sent by the Jedi to help." The boy's fear began to ebb away, replaced by cautious curiosity. Theron extended his hand. "Let me take you away from this place. I promise you, you will be safe. I will not let any harm come to you." The boy looked up, and Theron was struck by the intensity of his piercing blue eyes. "What is your name?" Theron asked gently. With a tremble in his voice, the boy replied, "My name is Soren." Theron Voss sensed an immense untapped potential within Soren, a raw power in the force that surpassed anything he had ever encountered. Gently, he helped the boy to his feet and guided him out of the warped room. As they made their way back through the compound, Theron kept a protective arm around Soren, deflecting any threats that came their way. Once outside, they were met with the sight of liberated slaves making their way to freedom. Theron contacted the Jedi Council, informing them of the successful mission and the extraordinary child he had found. A transport ship soon arrived, taking the freed captives to safety. Back on the transport ship heading to Coruscant, Theron Voss led Soren to a separate, quieter part of the vessel. Away from the bustle of the other freed captives, Theron hoped to learn more about the extraordinary boy. Sensing Soren's apprehension, Theron removed his mask, revealing a kind, reassuring face. "Are you feeling better?" Theron asked gently, kneeling to meet Soren's gaze. Soren nodded, though his eyes still held a shadow of fear. "Yes, a little." Theron smiled warmly. "Good. I know this is a lot to take in, but I need to understand more about you. What happened to you in that compound? Do you remember anything about your family or where you come from?" Soren shook his head slowly. "I don't remember anything before the cell. It's all blank. I just remember my name." Theron asked, "What is your full name, Soren?" "My full name is Soren Warde." Theron placed a comforting hand on the boy's shoulder. "It's okay, Soren. We will find out where you belong. I promise you're safe now." As they spoke, Theron's initial concerns about the immense power Soren possessed began to ease. Despite the boy's extraordinary potential, Theron sensed an inherent goodness within him, a natural ability to reassure and calm those around him. To confirm his suspicions, Theron decided to test Soren's midi-chlorian count. Using a portable device, He took a blood sample from the boy. To his astonishment, the device maxed out with each test. Doubting the accuracy, he tested his own blood as a control, which showed his count at 17,400. Reassured that the device was functioning correctly, Theron tried Soren's sample again, but the result was the same. Off the scale. Theron's concern deepened. What type of life would Soren have, even within the Jedi Order? Once the Council learned of his unprecedented midi-chlorian count, he knew the Council would be as astounded as he was, but he worried about the implications for the boy's future. Finally, Theron transmitted the test results to the Jedi Council. His portable device screen showed 17,400. As they neared Coruscant, Theron continued to talk with Soren, finding comfort in the boy's presence despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. Upon arrival at Coruscant, Theron Voss guided Soren through the towering spires of the Jedi Temple. The boy's wide eyes reflected the awe and wonder he felt at seeing the grand structure for the first time. Inside, they were greeted by a group of Jedi who led them to the Council chamber. The meeting began with Theron recounting the mission's success and the remarkable discovery of Soren. He relayed the details of the boy's captivity and his exceptional abilities. The Council members, though initially skeptical, quickly felt a profound sense of calm in Soren's presence, as if the boy radiated a natural serenity that put even the most seasoned Jedi at ease. Master Yoda, presiding over the Council, leaned forward, his wise eyes scrutinizing the boy. "Remarkable this child is," Yoda said, his voice a gentle rasp. "Feel the force around him, I do. Strong he is." Theron nodded, then proceeded to share the midi-chlorian test results. "I took the liberty of testing his midi-chlorian count," Theron said, carefully choosing his words. "The results were extraordinary." He transmitted the result, showing a count of 17,400. The Council members exchanged astonished glances. Master Yaddle, one of the elder members, spoke up. "This is indeed unprecedented. Such a high count has not been seen in generations." Despite the shock, the sense of calm emanating from Soren kept the room peaceful. It was as if the boy's presence alone could quell the storm of uncertainty. After much deliberation, the Council turned to Theron. "Given the connection you have formed with the boy," said Master Fey, "it seems only fitting that you become his mentor. The bond between master and apprentice is crucial, and it appears you have already established a strong one." Theron felt a mixture of relief and responsibility. "I will do my best to guide him," he said solemnly. As the meeting concluded, Yoda approached Theron privately. In a secluded corridor away from the Council chamber, Yoda looked up at Theron with a knowing expression. "Unusual this is," he began, his voice low. "Identical, your midi-chlorian count and his are. Very strange it is." Theron met Yoda's gaze, understanding the implications. "I felt it was best to send my own count instead of his," he admitted. "To protect him. I fear what might happen if his true potential were widely known." Yoda nodded, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding. "Wise you are, Theron. Protect the boy, we must. His power, a force for good, it will be. Guide him well, you must." Theron bowed his head. "I will, Master Yoda." As they parted ways, Theron felt a renewed sense of determination. He returned to Soren, who was waiting patiently, a small smile playing on his lips. "Come, Soren," Theron said gently. "We have much to learn and many challenges ahead, but we will face them together." Soren looked up at Theron with trust and hope in his eyes. "Thank you, Master Theron." With the Council's approval and Yoda's wise counsel, Theron felt ready to take on the responsibility of training Soren. He knew that the boy's extraordinary power could illuminate the darkest corners of the galaxy, and he was determined to ensure that Soren's journey would be one of growth, learning, and above all, a force for good. As Soren began his training as a youngling on Coruscant under Theron's guidance, unusual occurrences started to unfold. During a dueling contest with a youngling named Braxton Tay, who excelled at combat, an extraordinary event took place. Braxen was about to land a decisive strike on Soren's face when, in a flash of green energy, Soren seemingly disappeared and reappeared behind Braxen, striking him on the arm to win the duel. Braxen's face registered pure shock. He immediately reported to Grandmaster Yoda, exclaiming, "Soren cheated." His eyes glowed green, and he vanished. "It's not fair." Yoda calmed the situation, saying, "In the heat of battle, our eyes can play tricks on our minds. Remember the importance of controlling your emotions, young one." Despite his words, Yoda knew this was no mere trick of the mind. Later that day, Yoda informed Master Theron of the incident and requested that he ask Soren about the events during the duel. Theron, curious and concerned, approached Soren. "Soren, can you tell me what happened during your duel with Braxen?" Theron asked. Soren, speaking with wisdom beyond his years, replied calmly, "Braxen just stopped as though he was frozen in time. Everything turned green, and I simply walked around him to strike his arm and win the duel." Theron looked at Soren with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. The boy's calm demeanor, despite the extraordinary nature of his ability, was remarkable. In a more serious tone, Theron said, "You cannot use that ability in the presence of the other younglings. It will cause fear among them and be difficult for them to comprehend." Seeking Yoda's advice, it was decided that Soren should be trained separately from the other younglings on an individual basis. Soren, however, seemed unbothered by the speculation and attention his differences attracted. His ability to understand his surroundings and calm those around him continually surprised Theron. As Soren's training continued, his extraordinary abilities became more evident, and Theron's role as his mentor grew even more crucial. Despite the challenges, the bond between Theron and Soren strengthened, and their shared journey illuminated the path forward for both of them. In the years that followed, training Soren proved to be an extraordinary journey for Theron Voss, not due to the boy's behavior, which was always respectful and diligent, but because of Soren's insatiable curiosity and profound questions. These questions often left Theron, a seasoned Jedi sentinel with a deep understanding of the Force, searching for answers himself. Theron had spent most of his Jedi career delving into every aspect of the Force, exploring its darkest corners and the savagery of life. His realism and experience gave him a unique perspective among the Jedi. However, even with his vast knowledge, he frequently found himself yearning for the wisdom of Grandmaster Yoda to help guide Soren's relentless quest for understanding. One day during their training, Soren asked, "Theron, why do people believe the myths that Jedi are invincible?" Theron paused, caught off guard by the question. He instantly thought of Yoda's whereabouts, wishing the wise master were there to help. "What do you mean, Soren?" he asked, hoping for clarity. Soren explained, "Well, do you know any invincible Jedi? Aren't we just as fragile as all living beings? If the Jedi are the bringers of balance to the universe and always defend the light, why do we allow myths that are not truths? Would the Jedi only allow such lies to be in place as a form of control?" Theron was honest in his reply. "Soren, I really don't know. I've never considered it from that perspective. But now that you mention it, you have a very valid point." These kinds of questions became a constant throughout the years. Soren's thirst for knowledge and his ability to see things from unconventional angles continually challenged Theron. Sometimes Theron wondered who was teaching whom. During their sessions, Soren would pose questions that delved into the very fabric of Jedi philosophy and the nature of the Force. He asked why the Jedi Order sometimes seemed rigid in its doctrines, or why they shunned emotions that could provide deeper insights. Each question pushed Theron to reconsider his own beliefs and the teachings he had long accepted as absolute. On another occasion, Soren asked, "Theron, if the Force is in all living things, why do we focus so much on controlling it, rather than understanding it fully?" Theron, again, seeking the wisdom of Yoda in his mind, answered, "Control is necessary to prevent the Force from overwhelming us, but understanding it fully is a lifelong journey. Perhaps we need both control and comprehension." Soren nodded thoughtfully, but his eyes indicated that he was already pondering further implications. These discussions made Theron realize that Soren was not just any youngling. He was a profound thinker, one who might reshape the Jedi Order with his insights. Theron found himself often deep in thought long after their conversations ended, contemplating the boys' words and the deeper truths they uncovered. Despite the challenges, the bond between Theron and Soren grew stronger. They navigated the complexities of the Force and the mysteries of the universe together. Theron learned to appreciate Soren's unique perspective and the wisdom that often emerged from their dialogues. Years passed, and Soren's abilities and understanding of the Force continued to expand. Theron remained by his side, guiding him through the uncertainties and ensuring that his power was used for good. The journey was not just about training Soren. It was about evolving together, learning from each other, and uncovering the deeper truths of the Force. Theron often found himself marveling at how much Soren had taught him. He realized that wisdom could come from any source and that true understanding of the Force was a shared journey, one that he was grateful to undertake with his extraordinary apprentice. In the subsequent years, Soren began experiencing unsettling visions. These visions depicted tragic events happening to others, often ending in horrific circumstances. Confused and troubled, Soren turned to his mentor, Theron Voss, who, despite his vast knowledge, could not fully explain what was happening. Even seeking advice from Grandmaster Yoda yielded no clear answers. One particularly disturbing vision showed several Padawans, including Braxton Tay, on a training mission on a distant planet. The Padawans stumbled upon a darkness and became infected by something or someone. They then fell into a frenzy, attacking and slaying each other, leaving only Braxton standing amidst the bodies of his fallen comrades, his eyes as black as the darkest night. Soren immediately informed Theron of the vision. Theron contacted the Jedi Council to check the whereabouts of the Padawans Soren had seen. The Council reported that they were all present and accounted for on Coruscant, leaving Soren confused. "I apologize, Master," he said. "It all seems so real." Theron reassured him, "There's no need to apologize. Perhaps these events have not yet taken place." Seeing a realization dawn in Soren's eyes, Soren asked, "Master, could you check if Braxton and the other Padawans are scheduled for any off-planet training missions in the near future?" "Of course," Theron replied. Upon returning with the information, Theron informed Soren that they were indeed scheduled for a mission to a planet called Mortis in a few days. Soren immediately insisted, "We need to be there to stop this, Theron. I know how it sounds, but I cannot shake the feeling that we have to be there." Without hesitation, Theron looked into Soren's eyes and nodded. As they entered the atmosphere of Mortis, both Theron and Soren could feel a pervasive darkness. As their ship landed, Theron remarked, "We just have to find them now." Soren, sensing their whereabouts, led Theron, urging haste. "The events I foresaw will soon come to pass." As they approached the group, Theron cautioned, "Once we find them, we must hold back on revealing our presence. It would be hard to explain why we're following them." Soren agreed with the plan. Upon finding the group, all seemed well as the Padawans investigated a strange rock formation. There were 7 Padawans in total. Suddenly, they all stopped what they were doing and stood bolt upright simultaneously. Then, chaos erupted as they began attacking each other with their lightsabers. In a flash of green light, Soren disappeared from Theron's side, intervening to stop several fatal blows the Padawans were trying to inflict on one another. Theron quickly joined him, both trying their hardest to disarm the group without causing harm. This was no easy task, as the darkness in the Padawans' eyes drove them to attack anything in sight. In the end, Theron and Soren managed to destroy the Padawans' lightsabers and knock them unconscious. Theron immediately informed the Jedi Council of the events on Mortis, and soon other Jedi arrived to help. The intervention had prevented a tragedy, but the mystery of Soren's visions and the dark influence on Mortis remained unsolved. Theron and Soren knew their journey was far from over, but they had forged an unbreakable bond, facing the darkness together. In the aftermath of the Mortis mission, Soren's inquisitive mind began to question the practices of the Jedi. One day, as he and Theron Voss trained, Soren voiced a thought that had been troubling him since the incident. "Master Theron," Soren began, "why don't the Jedi use armor? After what happened with the Padawans on Mortis, it seems like it would be wise." Theron looked at Soren, intrigued. "Armor? The Jedi believe that the best defense is the Force. We rely on our agility and connection to the Force for protection." Soren nodded thoughtfully, but his mind was clearly still racing. I've been researching Mandalorian Beskar. It's strong enough to stop lightsaber strikes. And there's a metal called cortosis that can temporarily shut down lightsabers. Wouldn't it be safer to use such materials? Theron was once again astounded by Soren's ability to absorb and analyze information. The Jedi have never felt that any enemy in the universe warranted such defenses, he explained. Soren quickly responded, I didn't feel safe on Mortis. The Padawans were helpless against whatever infected them. We need to be prepared for anything. Theron couldn't argue with Soren's logic this time. The events on Mortis had shown that unexpected threats could arise at any moment. Soren continued, I've been thinking about how to protect ourselves and others in case something like Mortis happens again. What if we coat our lightsaber hilts in cortosis? It could disarm any lightsaber user quickly and remove the threat without causing harm. Theron laughed, impressed by the young boy's ingenuity. You really are amazing, Soren. How do you even think these things up? I don't think we need cortosis-coated lightsaber hilts just yet, but it's genius thinking nonetheless. Soren beamed at the praise, though he remained serious. I just want to make sure we're always prepared, Master. I don't want anyone to get hurt if we can prevent it. Theron placed a hand on Soren's shoulder, feeling a deep sense of pride and admiration for his apprentice. Your heart is in the right place, Soren. We'll discuss your ideas with the Council. Perhaps they'll see the wisdom in your suggestions. Theron Voss had been dispatched by the Jedi Order to the remote planet of Akan to investigate a disturbance in the Force. Meanwhile, back on Coruscant, Soren was completing his pilot training with the other Padawans. During one of his sessions, Soren was struck by a powerful vision of Theron's death on Akan. The vision was so vivid and terrifying that he knew he had to act immediately. Despite the orders of the Jedi Council, Soren made his way to Akan, driven by the urgency of his vision. Upon arrival, he found Theron in the midst of his investigation. Soren, what are you doing here? Theron exclaimed, surprised and concerned. You're supposed to be on Coruscant. Master, I had a vision of your demise. Soren blurted out, breathless from his journey. I tried to contact you, but there was radio silence. You're in danger. Mandalorians, Master. A group is here on Akan, and before you can show you mean them no harm, a battle starts. It's a bloodbath. No one survives. I saw their loved ones devastated by the aftermath. We have to stop this. Theron placed a calming hand on Soren's shoulder. Take a deep breath, Soren. Tell me exactly what you saw. Before Soren could elaborate, a large group of Mandalorians emerged from the cover of a mountain pass. The tension escalated quickly as the Mandalorians, with weapons drawn, demanded to know why Jedi were on a planet so close to Mandalore. We are here on a peaceful mission, Theron began, but the Mandalorians were already on edge, and he could sense their intent to attack. In that moment, Soren's presence took on an otherworldly quality. He began to glow green, a light that seemed to radiate from within him. His voice amplified, resonating with a power Theron had never witnessed before. There doesn't have to be bloodshed today, Soren called out, his voice carrying a calming, almost hypnotic effect. You all have loved ones to go home to. Please listen. There will be no winners from what is about to take place, only death and despair, and so much loss. The future I see is one where your clan will need my assistance. The Mandalorian group halted their advance, clearly taken aback by Soren's words and the unnatural glow emanating from him. They exchanged uneasy glances, the tension easing just enough to allow dialogue. Theron stepped forward, seizing the opportunity Soren had created. We are not your enemies. We came to investigate a disturbance in the Force, not to threaten you or your people. Let us find a way to avoid conflict. The Mandalorian leader, still wary, nodded slowly. We will listen, but know that we do not trust easily. Theron and Soren stood side by side, the young Padawan's vision and extraordinary ability having averted what could have been a catastrophic battle. As they negotiated peace, Theron couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride and wonder at Soren's unique talents. Soren's intervention not only saved lives, but also highlighted the importance of trust and understanding in preventing unnecessary violence. The bond between master and apprentice grew even stronger, their shared experiences shaping them into an even more formidable duo. Back on Coruscant, Theron Voss reported to Grandmaster Yoda, detailing the recent mission on Akan. He described the tense encounter with the Mandalorians and how Soren's intervention had prevented a tragic battle. As Theron recounted the events, his voice was tinged with awe and uncertainty. "Master Yoda, Soren saved us all on Akan," Theron began. His vision of the future and his ability to communicate it to the Mandalorians was extraordinary. He turned what could have been a massacre into a moment of peace. But this isn't the first time Soren has left me in awe. I've never been able to land a strike on him during our training sessions. Just as I'm about to, there's a green flash, and he's behind me. It's as if he's more than a Jedi. What is he, Master Yoda? How can someone like Soren exist? Yoda listened intently, his eyes half closed in contemplation. He took a deep breath before responding in his characteristically cryptic manner. "Theron, your questions are valid, they are. A puzzle, Soren is. Surprises everyone he does. Believe I do, that save us all, he will. Without your guidance, flourished he would not have. More than a master to Soren, you have been. Your unique skill set, one of the most formidable Jedi Sentinels, is what Soren needs." Theron nodded, though his expression remained troubled. "But Master Yoda, his abilities, they're beyond anything we've known in the Order. It's like he's on a different path altogether." Yoda's eyes opened fully and he leaned forward slightly. "Separate from the Order, always Soren will be. Difficult to understand his abilities are. Much time meditating on his path I have spent. Evolution of the Jedi, Soren is. His path shows us, not on the right paths, we are. From his example, learn we must." Theron felt a mixture of relief and responsibility. "I understand, Master Yoda. I will continue to guide him to the best of my abilities." Yoda nodded. "Trust in the Force, Theron. In you, Soren trusts. Together, balance you will bring." Theron left the meeting with a renewed sense of purpose. Soren's path was unique, but under Theron's guidance and Yoda's wisdom, they would navigate it together. The boy's extraordinary abilities were not a burden, but a beacon, showing a new way forward for the Jedi Order. As Theron walked through the halls of the Jedi Temple, he felt a deep sense of commitment to Soren and the future they were shaping together. The vision came to Soren one night as he sat in meditation, the images flickering behind his eyes like an old holovid. In the vision, Mandalore was engulfed in conflict, with clans battling over ancient grievances and new threats looming from the shadows. Soren saw familiar faces, members of the clan they had encountered on Akan, standing at the heart of the chaos. Destruction was imminent, and he knew it was his destiny to prevent it. When Soren approached Theron about his vision, the Jedi Sentinel listened intently. He could see the urgency in Soren's eyes, the clarity that came with knowing one's path. "We must go to Mandalore," Soren insisted. "I saw their world crumbling, but there's a chance to save them, to prevent it all." Theron nodded, trusting Soren's instincts. He had learned long ago that Soren's visions were not to be taken lightly. "We will leave immediately," Theron said, preparing to alert the Jedi Council. Master Yoda, upon hearing their plan, gave his blessing, confident in the young Jedi's purpose. Upon arriving on Mandalore, the tension was palpable. The air was thick with anticipation of the battles to come. Soren and Theron made contact with the clan they had met on Akan, offering their help to mediate and prevent the bloodshed Soren had foreseen. The Mandalorians, wary but hopeful, agreed to let the Jedi assist. It was during one of these tense discussions that Soren first met Tivara Jekasis. She was a young warrior, fiercely loyal to her clan, and determined to protect her people at all costs. When she removed her helmet to address the Jedi, Soren found himself entranced. Her brown eyes were filled with a fierce intelligence and a kind warmth that caught him off guard. For a moment he forgot why they were there, his mind blank as he simply stared at her, captivated by her presence. Theron, noticing his young apprentice's distraction, couldn't help but tease, "If you weren't wearing that mask, I'd have to tell you to close your mouth." Soren nodded slowly, still unable to find words. He felt a connection, something beyond the Force, something deeply personal. Tevara, too, sensed something special in Soren, though she couldn't quite name it. In the following days, Soren and Tevara spent much time together, both in strategy meetings and while sparring to relieve the tension of the impending conflict. Tevara was impressed by Soren's skill and humility, while Soren admired Tevara's courage and her unwavering dedication to her people. As they worked to broker peace between the warring clans, Soren's visions became clearer. He saw paths not just of destruction, but of reconciliation, routes where peace could be achieved through understanding and unity. With Tevara's help, they began to persuade key clan leaders to meet and negotiate. The night before the planned peace talks, Soren and Tevara found themselves alone under the starry Mandalorian sky. The air was cool, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of distant fires, the remnants of past skirmishes. They sat together in silence, each lost in thought. "Tevara," Soren began hesitantly, "I've seen many things in my visions, but meeting you, I never expected this." Tevara smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made Soren's heart race. "I didn't expect to meet someone like you either. You've shown me a different way, a path I didn't think possible." They talked long into the night, sharing stories of their lives, dreams, and fears. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, they knew that whatever the future held, their paths were now intertwined. The peace talks commenced with all the clan leaders present. Soren, Theron, and Tevara watched as old rivals began to see reason, swayed by the hope of a future free of constant warfare. The vision of destruction that Soren had seen started to fade, replaced by the promise of a new beginning. In the days that followed, Soren and Theron returned to Coruscant, their mission a success. But Soren's heart was still on Mandalore, with Tevara. He knew that his future held many challenges, but for the first time, he felt truly connected to someone beyond the Order. Little did Soren and Tevara know that this chance meeting would lead to a series of events that would forever change their lives and the galaxy itself. Their bond, born out of necessity, would grow into a powerful alliance, shaping the fate of Mandalore and the Jedi Order in ways no one could have foreseen. Over the years, Soren's visions helped Theron and the Jedi Order successfully broker peace on several warring planets, saving hundreds of thousands of innocent lives. Soren's love for Tevara was everything to him. He couldn't imagine his path without her. Despite all his power, Tevara always kept him grounded. Her warrior spirit was ever present, and Soren knew that, with the power he possessed, it would be easy to succumb to negative influences. But with Tevara by his side, that would never happen. She always had a way of bringing perspective to Soren's life, creating true balance. No matter the situation, she always had the last word, which was exactly what Soren needed, even if he wouldn't like to admit it. During an off-mission visit to Mandalore, while in the company of Tevara, Soren had a vision of a giant monster destroying the capital of Mandalore, Sundari. The city lay in ruin, with death and destruction as far as the eye could see. Soren explained the vision to Tevara, shocked by what he had seen, and drew a picture of the monsters. Tevara recoiled in surprise, struggling to speak. It's a mythosaur. They haven't been seen for generations. How can this be?" Soren looked at Tevara. "I don't know, but I know we must go to Sundari now to stop whatever is going to happen." Tevara nodded in agreement. Upon reaching Sundari, Soren knew exactly where he needed to be. He asked Tevara to stay in the ship to provide aerial support. Tevara reluctantly agreed, never one to back down from a battle, but Soren couldn't and wouldn't risk her. As Soren made his way to where his vision had shown the mythosaurs, the ground began to shake and debris shot into the sky. Standing before him were 3 mythosaurs of immense size. Soren channeled the force with all his concentration, reaching out to the beasts. "I mean you no harm. I only want to help. Why have you come to the surface?" In his mind, a booming voice responded, "The Mandalorians are destroying our sacred grounds. They are mining the planet to the point of no return. They do not understand the meaning of balance. They must be eradicated." Soren replied. "Is it already too late? Can the planet still be saved if they stop?" The voice returned. "We are not yet past the point of no return." Soren asked if the mythosaurs would allow him to speak to the Mandalorians with their assistance. He explained that the Mandalorians would never knowingly destroy their own planet, and that together they could find a solution without eradicating the Mandalorians. With that, the colossal creature lowered its head to allow Soren to ride it to the capital of Mandalore. As the mythosaurs approached Sundari, with Soren glowing green atop the leading mythosaur, Tivara watched from the cockpit of her ship. The sight was awe-inspiring. She was in shock at what was unfolding before her eyes. Thousands of Mandalorians gathered at the outskirts of Sundari, watching the mythical creatures of the past approach. Every man, woman, and child stood silent, awestruck. Soren leaped from the back of the mythosaur, somersaulting forward and using the force to land gently before the crowd of Mandalorians. Using the force to amplify his voice, he explained the dire situation Mandalore faced and that it was their last chance to change before losing everything. The Mandalorians ceased all mining of the planet's natural resources immediately, vowing to find a new way to sustain their population. Seeing that his presence was no longer needed, Soren returned to Tivara. On the journey back to Tivara's dwelling, a large smirk appeared on her face. "I suppose you think you're something special now, don't you?" Soren burst out laughing. "You'll never let me get too big for my boots, will you?" Tivara laughed. "Don't you forget it." The events on Mandalore had left a profound impact on Soren. After successfully averting the destruction of Sundari and helping to preserve the balance of the planet, Soren realized that his actions had inadvertently elevated him to a status he never sought. The Mandalorians viewed him as a savior, a symbol of hope and renewal. This was a burden Soren was not comfortable bearing, as he had always wanted only to save lives without becoming a figure of reverence. In the days following the encounter with the mythosaurs, Soren decided it was best to keep his true identity hidden from the public. He donned a mask to obscure his face, ensuring that his actions would speak louder than his name or reputation. He believed that remaining anonymous would allow him to help the Mandalorians without the distraction of personal acclaim, and help protect Tivara's identity as well. Despite his desire for anonymity, Soren felt a deep responsibility to assist the Mandalorians in finding sustainable solutions to their energy needs. He met with their top scientists and shared his knowledge of renewable power sources, introducing them to innovative techniques that harnessed magnetism and sound frequencies as energy. These methods were not only efficient, but also aligned with the natural balance of the planet, minimizing environmental impact. Soren's contributions helped the Mandalorians transition from their dependence on mining to a more sustainable model, preserving their planet for future generations. His selflessness and dedication to their cause won him the admiration of the Mandalorian people, even as he maintained his distance from the public eye. During this time, Soren formed a friendship with one of Mandalore's most revered armorers. This collaboration led to the creation of bespoke Mandalorian Beskar gauntlets for Soren, coated with cortosis to enhance their defensive capabilities. Soren also redesigned his lightsaber, coating the hilt with cortosis, allowing him to neutralize lightsaber attacks with ease. These modifications enabled Soren to disarm opponents without causing them harm, staying true to his commitment to preserving life. While Soren respected the judgment of his master Theron and the Jedi Order, he harbored doubts about the supposed extinction of the Sith, who were believed to have vanished nearly 800 years ago. Soren felt the presence of dark side users throughout the galaxy, sensing their influence lurking in the shadows. He believed the Sith were merely biding their time, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Soren's experiences had taught him that the Jedi Order, in their success and prestige, might have become complacent. He understood the need to remain vigilant and prepared for any threat, knowing that danger often came from unexpected places. Soren's upgrades to his equipment were not just for personal protection, but also to ensure he could continue to protect others from unforeseen threats. As he looked toward the future, Soren knew that the challenges ahead would require both wisdom and strength. With Tivara by his side and his growing skills and insight, he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Soren's journey was far from over, and the galaxy still held many mysteries for him to unravel. His path was one of constant learning, adapting to new realities, and always striving to maintain the balance between light and dark. In the quiet moments, as he reflected on his journey, Soren understood that true heroism lay not in being seen as a savior, but in the quiet, uncelebrated acts of courage and kindness that shaped the fate of the galaxy. And in this understanding, Soren found peace, ready to continue his mission, wherever it might lead him. Soren Warde stood quietly on the observation deck of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, overlooking the bustling city planet. He took a deep breath, allowing the familiar hum of the city to settle his thoughts. Returning to Coruscant felt both comforting and disquieting. In the temple's ancient halls, he felt the weight of countless generations of Jedi, all convinced of the Order's infallibility. Yet Soren could not shake the feeling that their certainty was a fragile illusion. Theron Voss, his mentor and friend, joined him on the deck. "It's good to have you back," Theron said with a smile. "How was Mandalore?" Soren smiled back, thinking of Tavara. "Mandalore was enlightening," he replied, choosing his words carefully. "But it's good to be back." The two Jedi made their way through the temple corridors, eventually settling into a quiet room for meditation. The gentle glow of candlelight flickered over their faces as they spoke, casting long shadows on the walls. "I sense the dark side, Theron," Soren began, breaking the silence. "Its presence is scattered but pervasive. It hides in the shadows, weaving through the galaxy like a serpent in the grass." Theron listened intently, nodding. "The dark side has always been present, Soren, but the Sith have been gone for centuries. Their power waned long ago." Soren shook his head. "That's what we've been taught. But what if that teaching is a comfortable lie? What if the Sith have adapted, finding new ways to cloak themselves from our perception? The Force is vast and deep. There are currents and eddies we cannot always see." Theron furrowed his brow, trying to comprehend the magnitude of Soren's insight. "Are you suggesting the Jedi have become blind?" "Not blind, perhaps, but complacent," Soren replied. "Success has lulled us into a false sense of security. We see what we want to see, and the Order has become trapped in its own narrative. The galaxy is vast, and to think we have eradicated every trace of the Sith is arrogant." Theron considered this, his thoughts swirling. "But Soren, the Order teaches vigilance. We are always on guard against the dark side." "Yes," Soren acknowledged, "but we are so focused on the shadows we know that we ignore the ones we do not. The dark side is cunning, always adapting. Just because we do not see the Sith does not mean they are gone. Balance demands their existence." As their conversation shifted, Soren spoke of Tavara. "She keeps me grounded, Theron. Her strength and clarity remind me why I do what I do. In a galaxy full of chaos, she is my anchor." Theron smiled, sensing the depth of Soren's connection to Tavara. "Love is a powerful force, Soren. It can be both your strength and your challenge." "It is both," Soren agreed. "But it is also clarity. It reminds me that my duty is to life itself, not just the Jedi Order. Tavara helps me see that." Theron looked at Soren, understanding dawning. "You don't see yourself as part of the Order, do you?" "Not entirely," Soren confessed. "I will always serve the light and protect the balance, but my path is different. The Order would fear my power and question my motives. Yet, when darkness looms, they would seek my aid. I am bound to the Force, not the politics of the Jedi." Theron sighed, feeling a deep sense of respect for the young Jedi before him. "Your path is not an easy one, Soren, but it is yours. You see things others cannot, and perhaps that is what we need." As they concluded their conversation, Soren felt a sense of peace. He had laid bare his beliefs and convictions, and Theron had listened without judgment. "I will always be here when needed, Theron," Soren said. "But the Force guides me, and I must follow its call, wherever it leads." Theron nodded, a new understanding between them. "And I will always support you, Soren. Your path may be different, but it is no less vital." The two Jedi sat in silence, feeling the gentle pulse of the Force around them. Together, they understood that balance was not a destination, but a journey. a journey they would continue, side by side, even as their paths diverged. Soren Warde was a blur of motion as he darted around the cockpit of his spaceship, frantically trying to fix the sudden malfunction. The craft had lurched violently out of hyperspace, and now it hung in the dark void, its systems flickering uncertainly. He had been on his way back from Coruscant to Mandalore, back to Tevara, when everything went wrong. The ship's control panel sparked as he worked, the acrid smell of burnt circuitry filling the small cabin. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Soren managed to stabilize the core systems. The screen blinked back to life, showing a diagnostic report indicating that a critical component needed recharging. Soren sighed, settling into a cross-legged position on the floor. If the ship needed time to recharge, he might as well meditate and center himself. Closing his eyes, he let the hum of the ship fade away as he sank deeper into the Force. In the quiet depths of meditation, Soren felt a shift, a ripple through the Force that caught his attention. Suddenly he found himself in a vast ethereal landscape. A figure appeared before him, an old man with a long white beard and robes that shimmered like starlight. "Who are you?" Soren asked, instinctively reaching out with the Force to sense the man's intentions. "I am the Father of the Force," the old man proclaimed, his voice resonating through the air. "I reside in the spiritual plane on the planet Mortis in the remote Crilithium system." Soren listened intently, feeling the Force swirl around him. The Father continued, "I have watched you since you set foot on Mortis years ago. My son, the embodiment of the dark side, was responsible for the young Padawan's fall into darkness, a fall you and your master averted." The Father spoke with a gravity that demanded attention, but Soren's instincts were on high alert. Every word, every gesture of the old man seemed calculated, as if hiding a deeper truth. Soren's senses tingled as he felt his unique connection to the Force coursing through him. It was a warning, a signal that something was amiss. The Father continued his tale, urging Soren to return to Mortis, but Soren's mind was racing. As he watched the old man, he tapped into a new layer of his power. His meditation deepened, and the Force around him pulsed with energy. This was more than intuition, it was clarity. When the Father finished speaking, Soren spoke with calm confidence. "Is this where I'm meant to drop to a worshipping pose at your feet and call you Master?" The Father's eyes widened in surprise, and a flicker of anger crossed his face. As he raised his hands, intending to strike, Soren acted with precision. He reached out with the Force, freezing the Father in time, green energy crackling around him. Soren slowly circled the man, noting the fear in the Father's eyes as he followed Soren's movements. "For a god, you are not very good at hiding your true intentions," Soren said, his voice firm. "I can see you're setting a trap." Soren continued, his mind clear and focused. "You wish to test my guilt, to see if I am the chosen one. But I hold no guilt. I walk the path of balance, and I will not be your pawn." As he released the hold on time, the Father stared at Soren with disbelief and fear. "You control time in all realities. You are more than a chosen one. This cannot be." The Father's warning was chilling. "You are but an infant with the powers of the founders of the Force. When you use such powers in spiritual planes, time is just a distant memory. What becomes of your previous reality may have already passed." Soren's heart skipped a beat as his thoughts turned to Tevara. Fear gripped him at the thought of how long he might have been away. He ended his meditation abruptly, snapping back to the present, the spaceship's lights flashing insistently around him. "All systems ready," the computerized voice announced repeatedly, a monotonous reminder of time lost. Soren's eyes flew to the ship's console, searching for the date and time. His breath caught in his throat as he realized the truth. He had been drifting in space for 7 months. Desperation clawed at him as he quickly reactivated the ship's engines, setting a course for Mandalore. What had happened in his absence? What had become of Tevara and the galaxy he had left behind? Soren's ship hurtled through hyperspace, the stars outside stretching into elongated lines of light. Inside the cockpit, his mind was a storm of thoughts and emotions. Thousands of questions flooded his consciousness, but one thought overpowered all others: his need to return to Tevara. The Father's words echoed in his mind. An infant with the powers of the founders of the Force. Who are the founders? Who was the Father? What did it all mean? Soren's mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. In an attempt to distract himself, he began scrolling through the thousands of voice recordings from Tevara and Theron. Each message was a bittersweet reminder of the life and time he had lost during his 7-month absence. With a shaky hand, Soren activated the ship's communication system and contacted Tevara. Her face appeared on the screen, eyes red and puffy from tears. "Soren, is it really you?" Tevara's voice was a mix of relief and anger. "Where have you been? I thought—" "Tevara, calm down," Soren interrupted gently. "I'm so sorry. Something happened during my meditation. I was gone longer than I realized. I promise I'll explain everything when I arrive on Mandalore." She nodded, though her eyes were still filled with worry. "You'd better. I've been going out of my mind." After ending the call with Tevara, Soren composed a hollow message for Theron, and Soren began to speak, his tone urgent. "Master Theron, I've had an encounter with what claimed to be a Mortis god, the Father. He said I have the powers of the founders of the Force. I need your help. Please, search the Jedi archives for any information about the Mortis gods or these founders. I'm on my way to Mandalore, but I need answers." He ended the transmission and sent it, hoping Theron would receive it quickly and start his research immediately. As the ship descended into Mandalore's atmosphere, Soren's anxiety grew. He hadn't seen Tevara in months, and he could only imagine what she had been through. The landing gear engaged with a soft thud, and Soren rushed to the exit ramp. Tevara was waiting for him, her armor glinting under the Mandalorian sun. When their eyes met, she ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. "I was so worried," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here now," Soren replied, holding her tightly, "and I'm not going anywhere." After a long embrace, Soren and Tevara sat together in her home. Soren recounted everything that had happened with the so-called Father of the Force. Tevara listened intently, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. "We need to understand what he meant," Soren concluded. "Theron is looking into the archives, but we need more information." Tevara nodded. "I'll contact our historians and see if there's any Mandalorian lore that might help. We'll figure this out together." Soren spent the next few days in Mandalore, waiting for responses from both Theron and the Mandalorian historians. Every moment he wasn't researching, he spent with Tevara, grateful for every second. Theron's reply finally came in the form of a hollow message. The image of his master was somber. "Soren, the archives are sparse on information about the Mortis gods. However, there are mentions of ancient beings tied to the origins of the Force. These beings, often referred to as the Founders, were said to have unimaginable power. I'll keep digging, but be careful. The Force is guiding you, but its path is fraught with danger." Tevara also brought back news. "Our historians have tales of mythical beings similar to what you described. They believe these beings are part of a larger ancient story about the creation of the universe itself. It's not much, but it's a start." Soren nodded, feeling a sense of urgency. "We need to uncover the truth, Tevara. If these beings exist, they could pose a threat to the balance of the Force." Together, Soren and Tevara began their journey to uncover the mysteries of the Force's origins. With each step, Soren knew he was not alone. He had the love and support of Tevara and the wisdom of Theron. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was ready to face whatever challenges lay in wait, determined to protect the balance of the Force and the galaxy he cherished. Soren's mind raced with questions about the so-called Father of the Force and the enigmatic Founders. The fragmented information he gathered from the Jedi archives and Mandalorian records offered little insight. He and Tevara, after countless discussions and sleepless nights, came to an inevitable conclusion. Soren had to go to Mortis to seek answers from the gods themselves. Setting their ship's coordinates to Mortis, Soren and Tevara found themselves not facing a planet, but a massive monolith floating in space. Its dark, imposing presence contrasted sharply with the brilliance of the stars around it. They exchanged perplexed glances. "Never a dull moment with you, is there?" Tevara quipped nervously. Soren replied with a sarcastic smile. "I'm glad you see it that way." As they continued to gaze at the monolith, it began to open, emitting an incredibly bright light. The sight was awe-inspiring and daunting. Soren took a deep breath. "I'm going to take the escape pod. I want you to stay right here in the ship where it's safe. I really don't know how powerful these Mortis gods are in their own spiritual plane." Tavara nodded, her usual bravery tempered with concern. "You know I'd follow you into any battle, but I believe I'd be more of a burden to you in there." Soren looked at her, taking in every detail of her face, his heart skipping a beat. "I love you so much. Putting you in harm's way isn't an option, and it never will be." They embraced tightly, Tavara squeezing with all her might. As Soren started to walk to the escape pod, Tavara called out, "Please, no freezing time while meditating this time. I really don't want to wait out here for 7 months or more." Soren smiled. "I'm already counting the seconds until I'm back with you." With a final glance, Soren entered the escape pod and launched toward the monolith. The pod flew through the bright light, enveloping him in an otherworldly glow. As the monolith closed behind him, Soren felt the familiar yet unsettling shift in reality that signaled his entry into the spiritual plane of Mortis. As Soren stepped out of the escape pod, he was immediately taken by the breathtaking beauty of Mortis. The landscape was a surreal mix of vibrant colors and ethereal light, with towering trees and crystal-clear streams. It felt like a paradise, a sanctuary of life and peace. But as Soren extended his senses, the illusion began to crumble. The beauty masked a dark underbelly. There was no other life here, only the overwhelming presence of 3 powerful entities. The entire realm seemed to be held together by the power of one being. Suddenly, a huge glowing life form began to approach Soren. As it drew nearer, he saw it was a woman with long, flowing green hair, radiating a celestial light. Her presence was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. "I am the daughter," she announced, her voice melodic and powerful. "So, you are the one who possesses the power of the founders. The father said you would come. You must be very powerful to make him worry so. You know, I have never, in all the millenniums, seen my father in awe." Soren remained silent, taking in her words. She continued, "I feel you want to know why you have come to be. Where does the source of your power come from? You have so many questions. The father will have answers, but the son will want to test your power." With that, the daughter transformed into a majestic winged beast and flew away, leaving Soren standing alone in the beautiful yet deceiving realm. He couldn't help but think of Tavara's words, "Never a dull moment." Soren gathered his thoughts and steeled himself for what lay ahead. He knew that his journey through Mortis would be fraught with challenges and revelations. His mission was clear, but the path was uncertain. He took a deep breath and began walking, determined to find the answers he sought and prepared to face whatever trials the sun might throw his way. As Soren walked forward with determination, he felt his power growing. He could sense his surroundings like never before, feeling the very makeup of the spiritual plane. The monolith was, in fact, a prison, and these entities were just memories trapped for eternity. Soren's mind raced as he realized that everything in this realm was simply force-charged protons that he could control. Just as this thought crossed Soren's mind, the atmosphere around him changed. He sensed the presence of the sun. In the blink of an eye, Soren was standing and looking at himself as a child, the moment Theron found him in the warped cell on Denon. A dark voice emanated from everywhere, and Soren couldn't pinpoint its location. "Oh, the poor boy. Look at the fear in those eyes. Even your so-called master fears you." The son's voice was a snarl. "I see the darkness in you." Soren could tell the son enjoyed playing games. "Is this all you have? I can't help but feel sorry for you, trapped in this prison for eons. Poison corrupting your mind to the point of no return. Now, this might be the time when you play with your prey. Unfortunately for you, time is of the essence, and I will not be part of any games." With that, Soren raised his hand, channeling the supercharged power he possessed. Within a moment, he found himself back on Mortis, facing the sun. "The sun, I presume, the embodiment of darkness. It's a pleasure to meet you," Soren said. The sun's face showed complete shock, quickly turning to anger. "How dare you? Do you know the power I possess?" "Yes, indeed I do. I can feel it. This place is very unique. Like right at this very moment you intend to use force lightning, Soren said. Before he could finish the sentence, red lightning shot from the sun's hands. Before it could reach Soren, his powers kicked in, but not like they ever had before. With a brilliant green light, everything in the whole sector was frozen in time. Meanwhile, Tavara watched from the cockpit of her spaceship, trying her hardest not to let fear get the better of her. All she could think about was Soren. Thousands of permutations of what was happening to him running through her mind. Then, with a surprised look, she saw the monolith glowing green. Then nothing. Soren walked along the red lightning coming from the hands of the sun. He couldn't help but admire the light show before him. As he approached the sun, whose eyes were wide with fear, Soren spoke with the wisdom that very few possessed in the galaxy. Look, I know all you have ever had is hate and fear and the desire to harm. This doesn't mean I'm going to treat you in the same manner. I have no anger towards you or hatred. I can simply see you need me to understand. And I do. I know that this is all you have ever known. How are you expected to act any differently? Hate breeds hate, and the cycle continues. Now, I wish to unfreeze you. I hope you can see that there is no fight here to be won. I only wish to talk and seek out your knowledge of who or what I am. With that, Soren unfroze the sun and the whole sector. Unbeknownst to him, the sun simply looked at Soren and said, I understand. And like the daughter before him, he turned into a dark-winged beast and flew off. Before Soren could take a step, the father appeared before him. You have our attention, Founder. What is it you seek? Soren spoke. You said I had the power of the Founders. What are they? Who are they? How do I possess their power? The father looked down at Soren. There is always a beginning. The Founders were there from the start. They shaped the planets. They cultivated the Force. They breathed life into what we see before us. You are born of the same power, the power of life itself. Never before have the Founders chosen a being to possess their power. You are the son of the Ward, the Warden of time and space. The power that emanates from you is his. You are one and the same. He is one of the original Founders. As the words sank in, Soren's mind was in a state of confusion. He didn't know what to ask first. As he regained his thoughts, one question found its way to his lips. Where do I find them? The father looked Soren directly in the eyes. You don't find them. It doesn't work that way. They are always there. They decide when to be seen. With that, the father announced, I have no further answers. It is time for you to return to your ship. Once back on the ship, he could see Tavara was in a state of shock. What's wrong? Soren asked. Tavara spoke back with a slightly worried stammer in her voice. We've been here for 3 months. The ship's computer says so, but it was just a few minutes. I don't understand. The monolith glowed an incredible bright green, and like that, we lost 3 months. What did you do? Soren couldn't help but laugh. At least you didn't have to wait around this time. Tavara responded, remember who has the last word in this relationship. Now come here and kiss me and tell me everything that happened. Knowing his place, Soren promptly walked to Tavara and kissed her, ready to recount his extraordinary encounter on Mortis. As Soren Warde and Tavara adjusted to the 3-month time loss, the weight of the revelation on Mortis pressed heavily on Soren's mind. The knowledge that he possessed the power of the original Founders of the Force was staggering, and he knew he needed guidance to navigate this newfound reality. Soren communicated with Theron and the Jedi Order. Hollow messages were exchanged rapidly, and Soren could see the concern etched on Theron's face as he recounted the events on Mortis. Theron, I need to understand what this power means and how to wield it responsibly, Soren said, his voice steady but with an undercurrent of urgency. Theron nodded. The archives have little on the Founders, Soren. This is ancient knowledge, even for us. But I will consult with the Council and the most learned scholars in the Order. You must be cautious. Such power is unprecedented. After ending the transmission, Tavara, with her characteristic wit, grinned and said, So, let me get this right. You have the power of the gods. Well, Actually more power than the Mortis gods. You can freeze time, talk your way out of any battle, and somehow you were lucky enough to find me. That Mandalorian spirit, ever present. Soren chuckled. I guess you could say that. Luck is definitely on my side. Upon returning to Mandalore, Soren and Tevara were greeted with a mixture of relief and curiosity. The Mandalorians, though pragmatic, could sense something had changed within Soren. His aura was different, more intense, more focused. The Forge Master Roken Vizsla, whom Soren had befriended, had urgently requested Soren's presence at the armory. While Soren and Tevara had been away, the armorer had been very busy. As Soren arrived, he was met with several different suits of Beskar armor, all with unique masks, unlike the traditional Mandalorian helmets. With a surprised voice, Soren spoke. Who are all these for? No Mandalorians wear these. Roken Vizsla responded in a calm tone. They are all for you. Soren, still slightly surprised, asked, Why? I don't understand. Roken started explaining. While you were away, it dawned on me that there was a way for me to help you, to repay what you have done for the Mandalorian people. And knowing your need for anonymity, I started building all the disguises you will ever need to protect your identity. I feel that the power you have will always be needed in this galaxy, and this is the best way that I know to help you. Roken then showed Soren a green Mandalorian set of armor. This is to honor you as one of our own. Green is for duty in the Mandalorian culture. A fitting mantle for you, Soren, and a perfect disguise while on Mandalore. Soren was overwhelmed by what the Forge Master had done. You truly are a good friend, Roken. I will always appreciate what you have done, and will never forget. Days turned into weeks as Soren delved into meditative states, seeking to connect with the essence of the Founders. The visions were fragmented, glimpses of planets being shaped, life being created, and immense energies being harnessed. One evening, while meditating, Soren was visited by an ethereal figure. It was not one of the Mortis gods, but a being of pure light, a presence that exuded warmth and wisdom. Who are you? Soren asked, his voice echoing in the vastness of the vision. I am the echo of the first, the being replied. You seek to understand the power within you. Know this, the power of creation is also the power of destruction. Balance is key. Your heart must guide you as much as your mind. Soren nodded, absorbing the wisdom. How do I ensure I use this power for good? The echo of the first smiled. By remaining true to your purpose. You are not just a wielder of power. You are a guardian of balance. Your bond with Tevara, your sense of justice, these will keep you grounded. Remember, power must serve life, not the other way around. As the vision faded, Soren felt a renewed sense of purpose. He rose from his meditation, finding Tevara waiting for him, her eyes filled with concern and love. What did you see? She asked, taking his hand. Guidance, Soren replied. I need to remain true to my purpose, to us, to balance. It's clearer now. Tevara smiled, her warrior spirit shining through. Then let's face whatever comes next together. Mandalore or the galaxy, we're ready. On a serene Mandalorian night, Tevara and Soren Warde found themselves gazing at the starlit sky. The evening was calm, the air crisp, and the tranquility of the moment allowed them to truly enjoy each other's company. Tevara broke the silence, her voice soft and curious. Soren, what's it like? Soren turned to her, slightly puzzled. What do you mean? What's what like? Tevara continued, her eyes reflecting the starry sky. When you use your powers, when you have visions and freeze time. I know I have never asked, but I can't help but wonder what it's like. In my mind, I always feel it must be very surreal, especially when time is stopped. I bet you've seen some very comical expressions on people's faces, like when you take a really badly timed holo image. Soren chuckled, the corners of his mouth turning up in a smile. You always find a way of making me smile. You really do make every second worthwhile. They both laughed, sharing a moment of lightness before Soren began to explain. Okay, let me try and explain as fully as I can. As a youngster, it was scary. I had no control at all. My earliest memory was warped and distorted rooms. Thankfully, being found by Theron was what saved me. I can't even describe what Theron has done for me. He will always be more than just a mentor. With everything I was capable of, he never judged or made me feel like an outsider, which even in the Jedi Order, I would become due to my powers. Soren paused, gathering his thoughts. My first account of freezing time was during a practice session with a Padawan called Braxton Tay. He was inches from striking my face and everything just stopped. I remember looking down at my hands and it was like green energy emanating from every part of my body. I came to learn over time that this was an instinctive part of my ability's defense system. Even during all my years of training with Theron, every single time he would have the advantage, time would stop, and I would simply walk to a safe area, and it would unfreeze. As you can imagine, Theron really enjoyed that element of my training. Tivara grinned, a mischievous glint in her eyes. So basically, I couldn't even give you a good motivational kick if I wanted to. Lucky for me, I can verbally keep you in check. She gave a cheeky wink. Soren laughed. Yes, indeed. Your words are sharper than any weapon. Tivara leaned in closer, her curiosity deepening. What about the visions? They first came to me in my dreams, Soren began, his voice taking on a more reflective tone. I would see terrible things happening to people I had never met or knew. Then the visions would come at any time and started to involve people who were very familiar to me, and it all became very real. Theron was the first to recognize that I was in fact seeing future events. You mentioned it must feel very surreal. Well, at first, very much so. But like everything else in life, even the most incredible feats of power become normal and second nature. I try my hardest to recognize what I am truly capable of, but always know that the easiest route is not always the best. And with the power I wield, I have the option of both and always go with the one which benefits the lives of those around me. Tivara gave Soren a loving look, her eyes filled with admiration. Every moment with you is a learning moment, Soren. You really will save us all one day. I love you, and every moment I spend with you. Soren smiled, his heart full. I love you too. You know, even with all this power, you are the one who teaches me the most about love and life. Without you, I wouldn't be half the man I am. They sat together in the peaceful night, the bond between them stronger than ever, ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy had in store. As Soren and Tivara enjoyed their time together on Mandalore, little did they know that on a distant planet called Ryloth, a darkness was growing. In a dimly lit laboratory, a hooded figure was engrossed in sinister experiments involving Sith alchemy. The central focus of his work was a large brain-like organism encased in a jelly-like substance, tentacles extending from its form. The screen in front of the hooded figure flashed with the word "failed" in bold letters. Frustration boiled over and the figure unleashed his fury. Several items in the laboratory were violently smashed to pieces, his power in the Force evident in the destruction. Just then, a call came through on the holo emitter. The mysterious figure presses a button on his wrist, a dark voice emanating from his cloaked figure. I told you not to contact me while I was working on the Cephalons. These creatures hold the secrets to time. The research I am doing is imperative to the Sith, taking back the galaxy from the Jedi. A second cloaked figure's image appeared on the holo emitter. I apologize, Darth Ramage. Your instructions were very specific. If the Jedi with the power of time was located, you were to be informed immediately. Darth Ramage's eyes narrowed. You have found him? Where is he located, Darth Tenebrous? On Mandalore, Master. What are your instructions? Tenebrous replied. Darth Ramage's voice was cold and determined. Ready the ship. We are going to Mandalore to find the Jedi.